I will make that decision, I would say, over the next 2 weeks. I could answer that question better in 2 weeks, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks. I'll announce it over the next 2 weeks. You know, in about 2 weeks. It'll be out in about less than 2 weeks, or maybe in 2 weeks.
Joining me now in the group chat, Sabrina Singh, former Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary, Rob Bluey, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Signal, and Lulu Garcia-Navarro, New York Times journalist and podcast host. So we were just playing all the times he's kind of set this 10-day deadline, but in the case of kind of defense and security concerns, 2 weeks is a lifetime. Can you talk about kind of how White Houses or like how they think about that block of time and what you do with it when you're trying to make this kind of decision?
It's a lot of time, and you're already seeing the department move additional fighter squadron into the region. You have F-16s, F-35s already moving into different bases along the Middle East. You also have an additional aircraft carrier that is going to move to the Middle East, to the Central Command area of responsibility. So all of this is posturing, and what it's doing is a power projection. We have, in the previous administration, when I served under the Biden administration, I mean, we literally moved an aircraft carrier right outside Iran to show how close not only we can get, but look at the air capability that we have on this aircraft carrier. This also gives the president a lot of optionality, a lot of flexibility and maneuverability within the area of responsibility that would potentially conduct a strike with Israel should the president choose to go forward. 2 weeks is a lot of time, but it takes a lot of time to move a carrier as well. And you can't forget that these carriers, it takes an incredible amount of manpower to move. And that's, you're moving a major city, a little city in front of a country. So it's a lot of time.
We hear Sabrina saying a lot of words here like optionality, maneuverability. All of that sounds like we need time to figure out what we are doing in response to Israel, because as Netanyahu said, he's going to do what he's going to do. I want to play a clip when the press secretary fielded a question about this 2-week self-imposed deadline from the president.
He's used this phrase about 2 weeks several times in terms of we expect like a 2-week deadline and then you give another 2-week deadline. How can we be sure that he's going to stick to this one on making a decision on Iran?
Well, in those deadlines, as you've seen in respect to Russia-Ukraine, might I add, these are two very different, complicated global conflicts, as you know, that the president inherited from our previous incompetent president in the weakness of the previous administration.
Yeah, it's
eyebrows up. Tell me, Rob.
Eyebrows up. President Trump's doctrine is peace through strength. And so I agree with Sabrina that he's trying to project power in the region. He would ultimately like to reach a diplomatic solution. I think he treats this as a very serious matter. He does not want to put American lives in harm's way if he doesn't need to. And so that's why you're seeing him drag this out. Now, I do have concerns that what can Iran do in the next 2 weeks? I mean, we will continue to see death there in not only that country, but in Israel. And so every day that passes is another day that you give the Iranian regime an opportunity to strike back on Israel.
That's the generous interpretation of what's happening. I think another interpretation of what's happening, and ultimately we don't know what's in the president's mind because he changes it so often, is that precisely this. We saw Steve Bannon showing up at the White House. We know that MAGA is split over this decision. Basically, President Trump came into power with this promise that there wouldn't be any foreign entanglements. And so politically speaking, this is very dicey for him. The other thing about this 2 weeks is that 2 weeks can be 2 months. As they wrote in the New York Times, the space-time continuum has no meaning to the White House often because we really don't know what is in the president's mind. This, though, has real ramifications. There are people in Iran who are dying. There are people in Israel who are dying. And in the meantime, this is not a reality TV show. This is an actual active conflict.
But on that, you guys have the same point, which is that just because you want to create some space for yourself to make decisions doesn't mean the situation won't escalate during that time, right? And that's a concern I hear both of you having.
Yeah.
That is a concern. And to Lulu's point, I mean, I do think that there are some prominent voices within the MAGA movement who clearly are trying to signal to President Trump this would be a mistake to take military action. At the same time, as CNN's Harry Enton has pointed out, the Republican base is largely going to follow what President Trump does here. So if he decides to take military action, I think that he will generally have support among Republicans.
It depends what happens at the other side of that military action.
Yeah. I think yes, the base follows him until you have an American fighter pilot in the air that could get shot down. Or if the United States does join Israeli strikes, Iran largely has held off on striking Americans in the Middle East, our bases. They use their proxy groups, they use Hezbollah. Should Iran strike with a ballistic missile one of our bases in the Middle East, we do not have the type of air defense and air cover that a base would need to, like, if it were to be overwhelmed. So I think it is incredibly dangerous. And, I think this president has said peace through strength, America first. This does kind of fly in the face of what he promised on the campaign.
Yeah. Listen, you guys, we're going to talk more about this because there are many more angles to come, so stay with us.